Okay guys, so today's project we're going to talk about a pin replacement, and specifically a pin called the expander or expander pin system from Nord-Lock. You guys remember my other video that I did with them with the locking washers? I actually sought out Nord-Lock. I wrote them and said, hey, I've used your guys' products in the past for several years. I love y'all's products. I'd love to make a video for you guys. Do you mind if I do it? And they said, no, fantastic. Here, we'll send you a bunch of free ones. You know, you can do it in your videos. So what this expander bolt is, or expander pin, is to replace these pins in your equipment. So one of the major problems with the pin is when you slide the pin in, the only part that has, usually have a little bolt like that, and you can actually, I don't know if you can pick this up on camera or not, but you can see that that bolt is actually broke off in there. So what will happen is you slide this in, you stick the pin in, and then the pin will move on the outside. Now generally there's never any grease on the outside of the pin. There's only grease on the inside. So this outside sits there and gets worn out after a while, and you end up with a sloppy hole like that. What they've done is they developed a pin that's got a little taper wedge, taper shape on each end. You slide it through. When you tighten down the bolt over here, it sucks down on this side and this side, so it's locked on both sides. When it's locked on both sides, that means the pin is not gonna rotate a little bit, it's not gonna move back and forth, it's locked on the outside. All you gotta do is make sure you grease the inside. Or to kind of tell you, they've tested this pin. One of the major tests they did is they approached Volvo and they said, hey, we'd like to use these pins. Volvo told them, hey, our standard is we have to have this in machine for 50,000 hours before we'll put our seal of approval. They did that, passed, so they got, Nord-Lock got Volvo's seal of approval on it. Fantastic product. What we're gonna show you today is how to pull this pin out. Now I've already got the bucket disassembled right here for the intro, but I'm show you pulling the actual pin out of the bucket. It came out really easy because it's just so sloppy. When we get to it, we'll pull the pin out, we'll do the measurements, show you how easy the measurements are. Don't worry about the measurements, they're extremely simple to do. They don't take very much time. They're pretty foolproof. This machine is just an old tractor of Chucky's. You guys remember Chucky 2009.
What's up guys, I'm Chucky 2009.
Now this needs a new bushing, so we're gonna have to have a new bushing made for it. This is way beyond repair. I mean, this is for years and years and years of neglect and abuse. No one makes a product that takes up this kind of abuse, so we're gonna have a new bushing made for the inside for it to slide in. But a cool thing about the Nord-Lock expander system is when it goes in out here, that cup that comes on the outside will actually take up about 60 thousandths of an inch for out here. So we don't have to get this outside welded up. This part is usually a pain in the butt because you have to have a bore welder come out, weld it up, grind it down to suit. And then, like I said, you're putting another pin in and it's just got a little lock deal on there. So no matter what kind of pin system you put in there, it just sits there and rotates back and forth, moves back and forth like this, and it just causes constant wear on the outside. All it takes is a few thousandths of an inch on a bucket, and especially bigger, heavier buckets. You get more than like 5-6 thousandths play. You're talking tremendous tons and tons of force every time you move that bucket, and specifically when you're digging with it. So this expander system will cure that. Part of the video, we're gonna go ahead and show how we disassemble this bucket and take the measurements. So this pin came out really easy because it hasn't been greased. You can tell by all the rust on there. Nobody's greased it in a long time. The grease fitting's probably broke on the machine, but there's so much slop in here. And I call this section a dipper, just so you know. There's so much slop in the dipper that the pin just came right out. It's supposed to be a bushing in here, and out here there's not supposed to be. We're gonna take some measurements, show you guys how to take the measurements on here, how to measure the pin. I think what the problem, or one of the major problems, I don't think this pin is original equipment on this. I think this is somebody's hack job to kind of put it together.
What's up guys, I'm Chucky 2009.
I might be wrong, but we'll go ahead and get our calipers out. Get ready to measure this. We need to measure the length, the diameter, then our pinholes out here for the attachment, and go from there. Okay, so when you get ready to do the measurements on here, this is the sheet that you need to fill out. Now there's different sheets and there's step pins. This is for a straight pin setup, a standard pivot pin. But you type in your company name, your contact person, city, state, phone number, your fax number, your email address, and you need to put who measured it by. So whoever measured the pin is who the contact information needs to be in case they have any questions. Then you type in all your other stuff, your machine make and model, machine year, machine serial number, original part. If all this is available, great. If it's not available, then just make accurate measurements and they can just build you a pin just for their measurements. So the very first measurement we're gonna need to do, lug hole and lug hole. So this is the left side and this is the right side. So what this is referring to with this hole right here, you need to do 2 different points of measurement on it. So for simplicity, we're gonna measure in millimeters. Now you can do it in millimeters or standard Doesn't matter as long as you put the measurement down. There's an option on here that says inches or millimeters. So we'll go ahead and measure or mark the millimeter side. We're gonna take one, it's a north, think of it as north, east, southwest. We're gonna do the north and south. And what you're doing when the caliper is you're just trying to rock it back and forth and get the largest measurements you can. So it looks at 38.31, 38.31. Now we'll do the east and west measurement, 38.42. So our maximum is gonna be 38.42. And our minimum is going to be 38.31. Don't know what the original diameter is supposed to be, so we're just going to leave that blank. Go over here, we're going to measure the other side, 39.34, and do the east and west, 39.08. This expander sleeve system, it'll take up to about a 60,000th of an inch variance on the two. So as long as it's not egg-shaped, you know, like that, more than 60,000ths of an inch, then it'll be fine. So our minimum is going to be 39.08. Our maximum is going to be 39.34. And kind of like a little helpful hint, whenever you're doing this stuff in the field, a lot of times your hands are dirty, you're rushed for time, so your handwriting's not gonna be perfect. What I always do is I'll print 2 of these sheets out, any kind of sheets like this. I'll fill in all my stuff initially, and then before I send it in, I'll actually go through again and I'll write everything down. That way it gives me a chance to kind of proofread everything that I put down, make sure the measurements make sense. We're gonna measure this one, which is gonna be our pin diameter, about 38.19. Now we need to measure the thickness of this outside, the flange that actually holds the outside of the pin, 38.45. Now we need to go outside to outside, so we're gonna use our tape measure for that to stick it in through the bore. So we're at 10 3/8. So I'll just write that up here, 10 3/8. Okay, so we're gonna mark on here. This outside, is it moving? No obstacles. Let's see, there's no obstacles. Fixed, this side is fixed. There's no obstacles there. So what this is saying right here is, how much space do you have on the outside? So if you need like the nut needs to be a certain size or whatever. We don't have any obstacles out here, so we don't need to take this measurement. Lastly, it's gonna ask us what kind of greasing is this thing on it? Is it center? Is it through the pin and outside? Is it supposed to be on both both sides of the pin? So it looks like here, there's a grease fitting right here. So we'll just do that A, and the lock ring diameter is gonna be the same diameter that's up here, the 38.45. Now the outside diameter, and then the thickness. Probably about 29 even. And whenever I put a whole number like that, 29, I always put 0.00. That way when somebody's looking at it, they know that it's 29 even. If you just put 29 or there's no point on there, when people are looking at the dimensions, they think, well, did he leave something out? Did he put something back in? That's it as far as the measurements. Now, I can tell you the outside collar will take up this difference just fine, and it'll lock in on both ends. That way, this pin's not gonna spin on the end or anything, and it keeps this side from moving. On your attachment, your buckets, whatever you're using, you need to make sure all this is adjusted to exactly where it needs to be before you put it back together. Now this is just it's a track, old tractor, backhoe. We're not really that concerned about it, so we're just gonna go off the measurements there. Send this to Nord-Lock. We're gonna have them make the pin and come back. And in the meantime, I think I'll probably knock this bushing out and have a new bushing made, but we can do that locally. So if you, like I said earlier, if you do have the problem with your bushing like that, you're gonna have to knock the bushing out, you're gonna have to put a new bushing in. But the expander bolt, once we put this bushing in, we put that expander system in, we're never gonna have to take this pin back out. These things are guaranteed 10 years, and the pin's gonna outlast the machine. So I'll take these measurements, I'll send them to Nord-Lock, and when I get the new pin in, we'll install it. All right, so we got the pin, the expander pin back from Nord-Lock. They sent it to me. And I actually got here pretty quick, man. I was pretty impressed. It comes up, they have the instructions that nobody ever reads. But that's the pin. So that's what it ends up looking like. It looks, I'm sure some people think it's a little more complicated than it actually is, but all it is you got a bolt on the end. Got Nord-Lock washers on there to make sure that the bolt doesn't come back out. But you take your bolt off. So you've got the bolt, you got your Nord-Lock washers, you've got that spacer, then you've got your cone. So all it does is you see those slits in it. So as this tightens down, it forces those back out. That takes up the space on the pin on the machine. So like the pin on the outside here, and it lets the pin not move at all. So once we get this in here, the pin stationary with the outside, and the actual piston end or the rod end is the only part where there's going to be any movement. These are extremely easy to install. All you do is take your hardware off, loosen that one side. You want to make sure it's loose, that way when you slide it in, this thing isn't expanded. But just take your pin. Something else, you do want to lube this with grease before you slide it in. This particular pin, because there's grease fittings on here, doesn't actually have any provisions for a grease fitting, but if your application does, like the old pin does have a grease fitting on the end, they have pins for that. All you got to do is put it in that sheet, the grease fitting orientation is, and they'll build you a pin to suit. So luckily this one, we don't have to worry about that. All you do, put it to where it's almost flush. You stick your sleeve in, tap it in a bit, just to kind of let it set it. Put your spacer on there, your Nord-Lock washers, and you tighten it down. And we'll do the same thing for the other side. So now the only part of this step that's left is to torque these bolts to whatever the proper torque is. So that tells us what our foot-pound rating is. So this bolt is a M14, I believe, which is going to be 85 foot-pounds. So I'll go get my torque wrench. I'll get a socket and a wrench, and we'll torque them down. Do a little tap, tap, tap. All right, we'll come over here to the other side, and we'll recheck this side. That's it, it's installed. What I did, that expanded that sleeve into this in on the bucket. Now, a couple of things about this setup. This isn't the perfect setup to do this explanation on. For one, we need to take this bucket back off. We need to go through it. We're gonna have to rebuild this bucket because the end of it's messed up. This part's bent. But for sake of display, showing you guys how to install this. Now, if you want to take it back apart, it's super easy to take apart. The hardest part of it is going to be getting the bolt to overcome that Nord-Lock washer. As you guys know from my other videos, those Nord-Lock washers, once they bite, you actually have to overcome those ramps to get the bolt back out. So all you do, you take your bolt out, and if you hit it with a dead blow or a mallet, it'll pop right out like that. That's how easy the pin comes back out. Now all I got to do is drive this pin completely out, which I'm not going to do right now. We'll put that in and tighten it back down. I'm not going to pull the pin out right now because we're actually planning on starting this tractor here in the next couple of weeks and moving this arm and articulating it so we can fix some stuff. But this pin has a warranty on it for 10,000 hours. From the manufacturer. This is a superior design. I wish and I really hope that more manufacturers go to this style of pin for a couple of reasons. One, this eliminates this end. There's more problems with the end on your attachments and your tools wallowing out and the pin getting loose in the very end. This eliminates that. It keeps the pin stationary to where the only movement is the actual, where the pin goes through and it actually moves inside your dipper or your hydraulic cylinder rod end where it's supposed to move. Pin's not supposed to move out here. Most manufacturers, they'll put it through here, there'll be a little hole through there, you stick a bolt through it, and it'll last okay. Like you can see this one right here, that's what most of them do. Now this pin right here doesn't have a lot of movement behind it, but these larger pins on here, like up here, you can tell how that one's wallowed out, this one's wallowed out, all the rest of these, had they used something like this wouldn't have been an issue. Now the other deal I really like about this, it's super simple to take back apart if you need to take it back apart. If you need to replace the bushing in here, or take your hydraulic cylinder out or something, all you do is loosen these up, hit it with your mallet, just like I showed you, you tap it there, that pops that sleeve back out, and the whole pin assembly comes out really easy. The hardest thing you're gonna have to about removing the pin is overcoming the Nord-Lock washer. Is by design, or that Nord-Lock washer, once that bolt backs out, at a 1/16th of a turn, it actually takes more force to loosen the bolt than it did to tighten it back out. And so that's it for the pin. If you guys have an application, there's a link down here. You can contact Bruce, you can contact Nord-Lock directly, ask them about the expander pin. They'll gladly send you some information about it. If you want to replace your pins, you can get on their website, you can download the appropriate sheet, the specification sheet, do the measurements and everything. And if you have any kind of problems just give them a call. They'll walk you through that. I like this, you guys know that I like this company. They make fantastic quality products just like this, products that'll save downtime. So if you guys have a pin that you need to replace, even if it's a factory pin and there's nothing inherently wrong, like you're just pulling the pin out, give the expander system a try, because this is going to last longer than your normal pins. It's going to be easier to maintain. It's going to be easier to access, easier to pull apart. Just fantastic quality. But I hope you guys liked the video. If you are planning on calling Nord-Lock or contacting the sales rep in the description, make sure when you contact them, you say, hey, I saw this on a video on YouTube. Stephen Cox showed me how to do it. This is what brought me here, because that lets them know that this video is worth it for them. It lets me know that it's a worthwhile product for you guys. And also, if you're in the comments, if you're planning on using it, tell me what you're going to use it for. Tell me a situation where this would have solved a lot of problems for you guys. Or if you have used this style of setup, let me know about it. Well, I appreciate it. Hit the like button over here, subscribe, and get out and fix something.